Hi everyone, welcome back to talking about library stuff. I like the macabre, and I do have a huge true crime interest, but yeah, pushing through the end of that project was tough. And speaking of pushing through things, I have finished what is literally twice as many consultations with our product design, engineering, technology students this year as I had last year. So I had 11 last year, I've had 22 this year, and yeah, it's great, except if you factor in the hour of prep, I'm doing about a full week's work of work. So yeah, they've been fun. Unfortunately, I've only gotten about 75% market penetration because these two sections, there was one locally on campus and there was another on our sister campus an hour away. So all those I had to do remotely. And I was kind of making fun the first year because I'm like, oh, I got all the students because they almost all wanted to do remote. Well, this year proved differently. I had a lot that wanted to come in person, probably about a third, maybe a half even. Which was nice and refreshing. I don't know if it's because of the painting behind me is getting around campus, but we had a fun time and I am not complaining. I do want to, however, give you guys the joy of talking about finding standards in Techstreet and Demographics Now and other places for all these lovely ideas. And yeah, there's 22 of them, so I'm going to try to spend a huge amount of time on any of them. And if you see me keep glancing over here, it's because that's where my notes are. So yeah, please don't take that personally. Not trying to not look into the camera lens. A couple of generic takeaways I got this year is maybe I should make some tutorials on how to actually search Techstreet. I did eventually crack myself and actually make a very long list in Microsoft Notepad of all the acronyms and which ones were the non-American ones and put them in like a nice list that says ignore. Because for most of us, or at least for my students, the international ones are not necessarily so applicable with the exception of ISO. So yeah, I have strategies now. My second year doing this, I have strategies, and that's the other reason why I do like an hour of prep work, because I can skim through, you know, lists of names of standards really, really fast. And yeah. So hopefully I'll find some time this summer to maybe make a couple of tutorial videos on how to navigate around Techstreet. Accurus bought Techstreet, so I'm not quite sure how that's going to work out in the future, if Techstreet Enterprise is going to remain the same. But in the meantime, I've definitely learned how to use it a lot better. I'm frustrated with it, which I will talk about if I do a tutorial, because there are parts of it where I'm just like, I wish this thing would let me like multi-select, but it doesn't, so here we are. Anyway, in the interest of respecting other people's intellectual property, I'm only going to be describing these product ideas in general terms. I'm not going to show you any of their lovely mock-ups. These are senior capstones, and some of these folks are going to be applying for patents. So I do not want to violate any of their intellectual property that they entrusted to me. Instead, we are, again, just going to talk in generic terms, just because some of these things really, like, I researched them and I discovered some interesting rabbit holes, let's just put it that way. For example, one of them, for whatever reason, brought up paprika, and I discovered there's a whole bunch of standards for spices, which kind of makes sense because those are the first things mankind traded amongst ourselves, and yeah, you wanted to make sure you weren't getting ripped off. So yeah, without further ado, the first one we had this year was actually probably one of my easiest one, and I'm like, dude, I wish these were all this easy, because I ended up with a bunch of consumer products this year that were a challenge. This guy was essentially building a better portable fuel container, and yeah, the theory was that you could siphon it or, you know, load it differently without having to mess about the way you have to mess about with fuel containers now and possibly get stuff spilled on you. So it was a good idea. That one actually was relatively straightforward because fuel, there's a lot of standards for fuel. Ended up estimating like the number of vehicles for a market using like the aggregate number of vehicles available and the method of transport to work for workers 16 and over from the census figures and demographics now. It's not perfect, but they have to come up with essentially a number for their initial production run, which I think they use to factor into, what do you call it? Now I'm blanking on the name of it, but sunk costs for things like dyes and materials, well, not materials, but dyes and things like that that you know, have to purchase in order to make something. So that's the reason why we have to come up with these lovely figures. They're very different than other market analysis, which makes other marketing tools sometimes hard to use. Another reason why we are doing the product development roundup. Other librarians might appreciate, who knows. I don't have anyone else to talk to, so I'm talking to you. So the second one we had was someone who wanted to do like a self-assembling microphone stand, which was a pretty cool idea. And I was like, all right, so that's probably for like gigging musicians, I assume. The standards though were like super difficult for that one. And yeah, that should have been like my flag for the rest of the semester because it was pretty intimidating. Especially when you like eliminate electrics, and everybody was super smart this year. It seemed like half the students were like, let's be smart and design something simple. The downside is you eliminate electrics and you eliminate a lot of standards because stuff is so simple that, you know, you don't have to worry about it. I'll talk about eventually when I found a consumer safety protection standard and then emailed back like the first 8 people who had consumer safety products. I was like, I can't find anything and I feel awful. So eventually did work out. I have one. It's in my notes now for next year. If you're making anything that you're like, please don't poke yourself in the eye, this is the standard you need. Okay, so yeah, we tried to get like a tripod connection standard, tried to estimate the number of working musicians using census data for industry and occupation by sex for employed civilian population 16 years and over. So yeah, that one was not easy, and it probably should have probably should have tipped me off. All right, which brings me to the next one. This great device, which I was like, my husband would love this, because I asked him, like, do you have long hair? And it's like, no, it's for my significant other. And I'm like, okay, because again, my husband loved this. This is his OCD right here. Something you would jam on the end of like a handle of your hairbrush, and it would just pop your hairbrush hair out, just pop it out from the other end without you having to like fiddle around and pull it out. Again, my husband is super weird about this. I don't know why. I love you, honey. But yeah, I'm like, but anyway, caveat emptor if you're buying anything sold within the United States to brush your hair, because there are no standards. UL, Underwriters Laboratories, has the electric hair cover, but the closest standard I could find that wasn't for children was the British one. Again, this is before I found this consumer product safety thing. Also shared the website for Consumer Product Safety Improvement Act, or CIPSA. CIPSA? I can never do acronyms. So yeah, estimated the number of stylists, because I'm like, maybe they could be early adopters using the occupation employment demographics I mentioned in the previous one. But yeah, I'm like, people would use that, but there's no standard for hairbrushes whatsoever in the United States. At least if you're not a child. If you're a child, you know, there's a standard there. All right, and the next one I had was this new type of stadium seating, and you could tell the person that was doing this was a working adult that worked in the industry. Very much had a very narrow range of demographics, so he was pretty well figured out. He also wrote me and was like, I think this is what I need, can you double check? So yeah, I just spent like an hour going, can't find anything else. So yeah, I had him request a BIFMA standard, because that's furniture, for those of you that don't know. And I'd purchase it. I told him, I'm like, I would purchase it, but for whatever messed up reason, it's listed as unavailable for purchase. So I don't know if BIFMA is like redoing this little standard 5.4, but yeah, I can't buy it. And we would buy it because we have a furniture design program on our sister campus, and they totally use it. Actually, I have several of the BIFMA standards. I'm just usually like, well, sure, we'll buy that. Everyone likes to make things that strap onto office desks for whatever reason. That was like the thing last year. Like 3 people were sharing the same BIFMA standard. I'm like, go talk to your classmate. Y'all are making similar things. Anyway, so I estimated the number of applicable venues that, you know, would want stadium seating or want to replace their stadium seating. Because essentially this thing was like designed to make it easier for them to install it, because you mounted it on like a beam. As opposed to having to do a whole bunch of grommets on their installation. Like I said, this is probably going to be on the market, so I don't want to get into too much detail. So yeah, I generated a business list using industry group numbers, focusing on like amusement parks and services. All right, on to the next one. I told you there'd be a little bit of these. Okay, we had this one that wanted to make this like adjustable leverage bar for use in like tight spaces that you could customize to go around things. Again, another consumer product. It was kind of an interesting idea. Felt it was kind of like an SCNO TV thing, but I'm not going to mock that because it would be useful for somebody. So yeah, we requested like 4 standards via ILL, 3 for socket wrenches, 1 for a pry bar, all parts of ASME B107. Also found like some ISO standards, but none were available via ILL. And we used owner-occupied housing units by housing value from the census, using sub-ranges from 100,000 to 400,000 in order to estimate the number of home repair enthusiasts. Which, granted, you know, that's raising some assumptions, but you're only going to take care of your own house if you live there. So yeah, adjustable leverage bar. And then we had the, I call it a fiber dispensing end table, but if I say that, it sounds like it could be like Metamucil dispensing, but it's not. It's, the person was like, I pitched it online on like a chat board or whatever, a message board, and they're like, I had a bunch of people who are interested in this, and if they do make it out of actual wood, I was like, you probably got at least a few $100 price point. But the theory was like you put your skeins or whatever in this little end table, and you can like sit next to it and do your thing, crocheters, knitters, what have you. You do your thing. And they'd have like multiple drawers, you put multiple skeins in. I don't do that, so I can't tell you how useful that is, but it's a cool idea. So yeah, I went and managed to get her our copy of X 6.5 2022 from BIFMA, and Messel mentioned this like furniture sustainability standard BIFMA's come out with, but we didn't buy. It's actually available online for free, so if you are building furniture in your copious spare time. We used statistics from EdenYarnFest.com to like estimate the number of fiber enthusiasts with disposable income, because again, you're gonna need a little bit of money in order to be able to buy something that's made of actual wood. And retired people are fine, but I was like, don't necessarily put in people on a fixed income as your market population. I mean, they may be able to afford it, but fixed income, it's tough. All right, then there was this one that wanted to make a manual sort of shoe cleaner where you would like stick your foot up against brushes and then like pull a lever and it cleaned it. I had the dangest time with this one. I was so good when I finally talked to the student, because they're like, oh, I work in the vacuum industry, and I was thinking about like beater bar style brushes. I'm like, and this is why like I always ask now in my meeting request. I'm like, please tell me your inspiration among other things, because the inspiration really does help. Like if I know you're like looking at this and thinking of moving it into that space, and I can look for a standard for this, it narrows things down. The other challenge with doing these is trying to remember that you're looking for the standard for the finished product. Sometimes the material, but not always the individual parts, because I do go down rabbit holes where I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, we are looking for the standard for the entire thing, not for this little bit of it. So yeah, this was the one that was like super difficult to find standards. We had like ergonomics manual handling from ISO. Pushing and pulling was like the closest. So that's ISO 11228-2. We used education employment reports from the census and occupation employment reports to estimate the number of people working quote-unquote dirty jobs, because otherwise, aside from disposable income, that was the only thing I could think of, would be a target market that would get dirty enough to want to use a manual large-ish cleaner. Anyway, without further ado, we also have, I had two this year that wanted to make something with 3D filament dry storage, or storage containers of some kind. So I also got to learn a lot about additive manufacturing, which was great because I need to learn about that anyway. But it was a bit of a rough go at first. There's a lot of powders, there's a lot of standards about that. Anyway, this was my first one, and it was like a dry storage container. So the guy actually, this one was a little more sophisticated. The next one was kind of like, not quite sure what to find for anybody. So yeah, found additive manufacturing, polylactic acid or PLA filament, which is the one that's most common, I think, out in the consumer market. Temperature regulating equipment, and silica gel, because he's like, I'm gonna put silica gel in there. I'm like, okay, good for you. I used make.co to estimate like the number of maker spaces, because it was going to hold like 10, I think. It was like right on the cusp of being like makerspace consumer, but not big enough to be like commercial production. So yeah, we had to use Statista, number of printers used in design and not manufacturing. And there's codes for NASIS and SIC for 3D printing, but for whatever reason, Gale's Demographics Now don't list them, which is really strange, and I hope that gets updated. All right. Next, we have the 3D printer filament storage container, which is not a dry box. It's literally like a thing you hang in your closet, kind of, because it had like a hanger at the top, and you like stuck your filaments in these little baggy pouches. It was kind of a cool idea. The dry box is looks like a, best thing I can describe it as, and the reason I looked over there is my lovely styrofoam shipping containers. So it looks kind of like one of those with glue and a fan. So yeah. Anyway, this one, it was, again, the PLA filament standard, and this was the one where I found the consumer product safety one and went, ooh, and emailed everybody back. Did the number of makerspaces to make.com again, and then g2.com to find the number of consumers with 3D printers. Because the other one was kind of like, well, it could be either. And then we went on to this lovely medical one. I had a couple medical ones. This one was probably the easier of the two. I get very squeamish, so medical ones are hard for me to do. I'm like, oh, yay, I get to look at medical stuff. So this first one was like an enteral G-tube feeding device that I guess if you have an enteral tube or do enteral tube feeding, they have to like keep dropping syringes into your feeding tube as opposed to like just doing a big thing that would allow you to just like put it all in at once and then the person, you know, slowly drips in. Anyway, it sounds like a pain. And I'm like, well, clearly there's a backstory to this, but I'm not sure I want to know it because after looking this up, it's apparently something to do with what do you call it, premature births or bad things happening to you. It's like, no, my wife's just like a nurse, and yeah, she has to deal with this. I'm like, oh, okay. Because I was sitting here going, I hope you don't have a premature baby that didn't survive or something. Anyway, so yeah, that one was easy to find, you know, applicable standards on enteral feeding systems and their connectors, because it had to connect to them. Create a business list in Demographics Now using the applicable codes, such as 8051, like skilled nursing care facilities. That one wasn't bad. That's the one thing I'll say for the medical ones. There's usually standards for it. The exception possibly this other one where I couldn't get the standard, but we know what it is. So yeah, this is the next one, the eye containment removal training device, which it's essentially an eyeball on a stick, as I call it. It's designed to like affix to or clamp onto part of the equipment that they use to train eye doctors, and it's got like removable corneas with stuff in them so that they can practice picking stuff out of corneas. Apparently there would be a market for this, and this person does teach that, so I'm kind of like, good for you. Unfortunately, I felt bad because Linda Hall Library, among others, will not lend us the standard via ILL, which thanks that we need, and it's ANSI Z80.23 2018. Yeah. And I offered to purchase it, but they're going to graduate. It's like by the time we get it processed, you'd have to be an alum. We'd have to figure something out. But it is something like, if you're like, I need to bring it to market, we can make it happen. Because I am totally making sure people can remove things from corneas. Because my husband has had that happen several times. Including one time where they interrogated for a while and then got mad that between, oh gosh, we spent like 2 or 3 hours up at urgent care, and then we went and had dinner because it was like after dinner time, and then drove the hour down to the other hospital to actually get him dealt with. And the other doctor was like, why'd you take an hour in between? I'm like, dude, we were so hungry. So hungry. Anyway, there's a lovely caster swivel lock. Yeah. Basically a thing that you attach to casters and prevents them from swiveling when you want them to be locked, which is a cool idea. He said it was approved by the instructor, but yeah, I looked at his company website. I'm like, this is already on the market, which kind of seems a little odd, but okay. He's like, my professor knows. I'm like, okay, just checking. Anyway, so yeah, there's like 4 aerospace industry standards, 6 military ones for casters, consumer product safety standards. You know, you don't want to chop somebody's finger off with a caster. However, it's really hard to find caster market information specific to the United States. It's very much worldwide online. Because you can use casters for so many things, you don't really want to limit it to, you know, people with disposable income. Who buys casters? Everyone. Anyone. All sorts of things. Anyway. Okay, so we also had a tabletop desk holder, which was basically a big holder that would hold the big shipping tapes on a desk. Good stuff, right? So there's only like a federal standard or a German standard for tape dispensers, kind of like the hairbrush thing. There's plenty on various kinds of adhesive tape. This was also the fun one where we asked the robot come up with alternate words or phrases for adhesive tape. And the number one in like the first 10 was sticky strips. So like, yeah, I basically sent the student off like, ask one of your classmates for a sticky strip and see what they give you. Because he's like, yeah, the other 9 or something I've heard of for adhesive tape, but never sticky strip. I'm like, yeah, ChatGPT sometimes gives you some interesting replies. So yeah, I've been trying to use it for keywords, but sometimes it is bad. And the other fun thing I learned, partially from this and partially from trying to do it with the hairbrush standard, is do not ask ChatGPT about standards, because I was hoping it would drop me in like an approximate area where I could navigate around and find something useful. But no, it hallucinates standards numbers, and it hallucinates the phrasing after them. So you look up the standards number and it doesn't match at all what it's supposed to be about. And you can search by the happy little phrase that's after it. That would be the title, just to see if maybe it is a standard and it got the number wrong. And you won't find anything either. It is super frustrating, because I'm like, could you please just drop me in the right approximate area? But no. No, it will straight up hallucinate standards numbers. So there's your ChatGPT warning. So yeah, some online information about tape dispenser, but definitely not number of units sold. So that was another tough one. All right, and then there was, I called this like a guy idea. I don't know, maybe it's for OCD. But I asked him about it when we met, and it's like, well, if you hang your belts on one of those belt hanger things and it gets unweighted, they all drop to the floor. Forget where else he tried storing his belts. Oh, that was it, hanging them on the hangers that hang on the back of closets or backs of doors. But then it's like, well, you have everything hanging there, and then your belt gets buried. So their idea was to come up with this like square belt storage device that kind of worked like what do you call this? Tape measures. So you'd stick like the belt in, it would suck it in and store it for you in like this square box. And I'm like, would you buy this for belts you already have, or would this be like packaging for a new belt? And it's like, no, you can buy it for belts you already have. And I'm like, do you put multiple belts in one box? Because then how do you know how to get them out? And it's like, no, one belt per box. I'm like, okay. Again, I didn't get it until I talked to him, and it's like, okay, I guess I could see that, because you put it in the drawer and they can be color coded. As a belt user myself, I just coil them up and put them in the drawer. But you know, I was like, well, okay, maybe if you got OCD and you know, it's an idea. I shouldn't knock it. People come up with crazier ones. So yeah, I found standards on breaking and cracking of leather, because a good chunk of belts are leather. The extension springs, and consumer product safety. Use a household income range from census data to narrow down potential buyers. So like disposable income somewhere between 40,000 and 99,000. So, you know, because it's a relatively cheap product. And then I'm like, well, how much do you have to be before you stop caring about how your belts get stored? You know, you get a walk-in closet at what level? You know, at which point you have a whole drawer for your belts. Who knows? Anyway, yes. And then we had this lovely person that I talked to while they were riding their car down to see the eclipse in a much more visible part of the country. That was real fun. And they designed like this base to hold flower pots that was supposed to help them drain and keep them upright, I think. I am just going to admit I did not understand the product. It was not for me. But we found some standards on water flow rates, did the consumer safety thing, and used some online information about the flower growing industry from Statista for the demographics. Yeah, good luck to you. That one was kind of tough too. This also looked like a really strange idea when I first saw it, but I can kind of see it, because the only other things I've seen that are closed for shoe drying racks are like the ones where they just have the individual like pegs, and then, you know, there's no ventilation. But this lovely person made like a thing to slide over your forced air vent, and it had like big PVC pipe coming up the middle, and then like it branched out 8 ways. And it's kind of interesting looking. Not too sure how practical it is, assuming you can make it lighter weight, because again, I was looking at the prototype image. But yeah, I found standards on like drying leather and other textiles, because again, you get down the rabbit hole of shoe standards and you're like, we're not making shoes, we're drying shoes. Also used some online census data about forced air furnaces to estimate the demographics, so that was pretty good. Housing units, yes, very helpful. Alright, and then next we had this, like, I call it a hot pot travel container, because I am still a little confused if this person knew the difference between a pressure cooker and a slow cooker, because I'm pretty sure what they're talking about was carry around a slow cooker crock. Not a pressure cooker, but whatever. The they're making this heat-resistant thing that you essentially put the crock in, and then you take off the lid, the glassware lid, at least mine is glass, and then you put the top of the lid in, and then you take it to, you know, your cookout, and you flip the lid open, and the lid's got like serving stuff in it. Kind of cool idea. And I was like, okay, how do I, yeah. The closest thing I could find, again, after a lot of searching, was polypropylene, which is what they were going to make it out of, and protective gloves, because there was like a protective glove standard that talked about gloves being like built into a container. Yeah. So I managed to use family households with incomes between $30,000 and $150,000 from Census Data and Demographics Now to target families with disposable income as opposed to just people with disposable income, because it definitely seems more like a family product. All right, and then we have the everyday carry organizer that we're still not sure what to call it. I actually dragged coworkers in here because I couldn't figure out what to call it to try to find standards, and was like, what would you call this? And then of course one of them had the bright idea, like, why don't we just do an image search? And I'm like, I'm trying to come up with things that are out of the box. If I wanted that, I would ask the robot, but we did anyway, and we came up with some other ideas. And I spent like a good long time trying to find something that matched this thing that I guess it's going to be modular, and you can customize what parts of it you put together, and then you like thread it through your belt loop, and it holds stuff like a flashlight and a lighter. I forget what the other thing was that was supposed to hold, like a carabiner. I'm gonna admit again, like the belt storage, I don't get this one. Tried utility belt, tried purse, I tried bag, tried all sorts of things. Oh my gosh. Anyway. So extremely different defined standards that apply to the entire product except like a very general consumer product safety one I've been mentioning. Found standards like the powdered nylon, because again he was going to use additive manufacturing, and these things called thermoplastic polyurethanes, or TPU. Again, additive manufacturing, just hadn't stumbled across it. Use the income and poverty census data to estimate the number of people, not the families, with disposable income, even though again it's a pretty low-cost product. Ah, yes, and then we have the Waste Away, aka a canine waste management device. And this is actually kind of cool. When I talked to the person, they're like, oh no, I'm going to make larger ones so that your giant Great Dane can have one too. Because they have an older parent who has the issue of, you know, can't always let the dog out, or you're going off to work, or, you know, because my Dan's always like, it's cruel to leave a dog in a crate while you're going to work. They should have the whole house. I'm like, leave them in the crate and they don't make issues. Anyway, so it was a good idea. Basically a device that has like a, well, I call it a conveyor belt, but it's also a conveyor belt. But it's essentially something that will trap the waste and hoard it away and, you know, let the dog jump off and keep it there until you have time to go and empty it. It's an interesting concept. Like I said, it looks like it's for little dogs, but they can make a bigger one. So yeah, the best two for materials were ASTM E159321 on malodor, because you definitely don't want that thing smelling if it's trapping a bunch of stuff. And ISO 24669 2021 on urine absorbing product. Yeah, this one was a fun one to look up. Urine, fecal bacteria, all sorts of good stuff. There was an extremely detailed Forbes report compiled for the pet insurance market that combined that information with like the daytime population to estimate the number of people working from home for the demographic. And yeah. All right, so getting to the end of these, I know, I'm like, oh my gosh, we're already at 30 minutes and I'm going to be late for my thing, but whatever, I don't care, I'm going to keep talking. All right, this other one, which I thought would be more of like a squishy type of material band, actually turned out to be a thing solely to cover your headphones, if you have like over-the-ear headphones, and hold back a portion of the earpiece in order to accommodate your glasses. It's an idea. I'm not going to knock it. But what I thought it was first was a little bit more thicker and would pop them out a little bit more. I don't know. Anyway, so it's a comfort band. At least that's what we called it. Again, he used TPUs, polylactic filament, injection molding, particularly SPE 1331. Used some age ranges combined with income ranges to estimate the number of people with disposable income, because he's like, well, it could be for young people or older people or this or that or what have you. Again, this one wasn't so much my jam. All right, we're down to the last two, which were from this week. So Mondays was this modular socket storage system, which essentially has plates that would hook together, and you'd be able to store different size sockets, different kinds of sockets, all the sockets, all the sockets. Anyway, in addition to the Consumer Product Safety Standard, there are 2 ASTM standards on powder coating and another 2 on the same topic from SME and SSPC. So yeah, that worked out. Spent a lot of time showing him standards that did not apply from various materials, but hey, it was fun. I used the number of housing units with 2 to 5 plus vehicles available to estimate people who might work on their own vehicles, because they said that was going to be their primary market. And last but not least, a laboratory glassware drying rack, which originally was going to have a motor, but in the ease of simplicity was designed now to hang on the wall and literally just hold the glassware, which is fine. The only thing that really applied though is like ASTM D5245-19 on cleaning glassware, because all the other standards either required a motor for a fan to dry it or focused on like the type of glassware like beakers, pipettes, what have you. And again, you have to sit there and go, we're not designing glassware, we're designing a rack to hold glassware. We also went and dug out some information from the ICC building codes, which I had not dug into before and was a little overwhelmed by because the PDF for those is huge. And we were looking for spacing of wall studs in like commercial buildings, simply because they wanted to make sure they could like drill it into the studs so that, you know, when you hang the glasses on, it's not all just going to fall off the wall. Makes sense, right? Yeah, that one was a tough. So now I've seen the inside of the ICC building codes, I can say that. I also generated a business list of laboratories using NACIS 5417, 6215, plus SIC codes from the 80s and 87 ranges. And those don't take a while to build, but they are worth it because it will give you an exact number. Alright, I'm drying out and I'm about to have a nice happy meeting time. So hopefully you enjoyed listening to this lovely range of senior project capstone ideas, as well as thoughts on how to look for standards and demographics if you too are teaching product design students or other similar programs.